The year was 2347, and humanity had finally earned its place among the stars. After centuries of war, struggle, and slow expansion across the solar system, humans had built ships fast enough to reach distant galaxies. Now they were about to meet the species who had been watching them for a very long time. Commander Daniel Hayes stood in front of the observation window of the diplomatic vessel Horizon's Edge. He was a tall man with gray hair at his temples and calm brown eyes that had seen too many battles. Behind him, the bridge crew worked quietly at their stations, preparing for what would be the most important meeting in human history. "We're approaching Valora Station, Commander," said Lieutenant Amanda Price from the navigation console. She was young, barely 30, with dark hair pulled back in a tight bun and sharp green eyes that missed nothing. "Docking in 15 minutes. Daniel nodded slowly. "Signal the council that we're ready for inspection." Valora Station was enormous. It hung in space like a metal flower, with 12 curved arms extending from a central hub. Each arm belonged to one of the 12 species of the Andromeda Pact, the alliance that controlled this region of the galaxy. For 300 years, these species had traded, argued, and sometimes fought with each other. And for 300 years, they had ignored the small blue planet called Earth. That changed when human ships appeared at the edge of their space. The council had watched. They had studied. And finally, they had sent an invitation. The Horizon's Edge docked smoothly at the human arm of the station, which was still mostly empty. Daniel adjusted his formal uniform and turned to face his team. Besides Amanda, there was Dr. Nicole Barrett, their chief medical officer, a woman with kind eyes and steady hands. There was also Sergeant Marcus Cole, the leader of their marine security detail, a man built like a tank with a face that looked like it had been carved from stone. Behind Marcus stood 6 Marines in full combat gear. Their M7 Titan-class exoskeletons made them look like giants. The armor was painted in dark gray and blue, the colors of Earth's united military forces. Each suit weighed nearly 300 kilograms and added almost half a meter to the wearer's height. Servos hummed quietly as the Marines shifted their weight, ready for anything. "Remember," Daniel said to his team, "we're here to make friends, not enemies. Stay calm, stay polite, and don't let them get under your skin, no matter what they say." The airlock opened with a soft hiss, and they stepped into Valora Station. The corridor was wide and filled with light that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Aliens of various shapes and sizes moved past them, some walking, some floating, some crawling on multiple legs. Daniel had studied the briefing files for months, but seeing them in person was something else entirely. The first to approach them was a Volante. The creature was tall and thin, with silver skin that seemed to shimmer like metal. It had 4 arms and a narrow face with large black eyes. When it spoke, its voice was smooth and musical. "Welcome to Valora Station. I am High Counselor Theven. You must be the humans." "Commander Daniel Hayes," Daniel replied with a slight bow. "Thank you for receiving us." Theven's lipless mouth curved into something that might have been a smile. "We have been curious about your species for some time. You have made quite the journey to reach us." "It wasn't easy," Daniel admitted, "but we believe the effort was worth it." As they walked toward the council chamber, more aliens joined them. The Korax were hard to miss. They were reptilian creatures covered in crimson scales, with powerful bodies and yellow eyes that seemed to glow. Their leader, General Krevox, was the largest of them, standing over 2 meters tall with muscles that rippled under his scaled skin. Krevox studied the human Marines with obvious interest. Then he laughed, a deep rumbling sound that echoed through the corridor. "What are these things your soldiers wear?" he asked, pointing at the M7 armor. "They look like they can barely move." "That is our standard combat armor," Daniel explained calmly. "The M7 Titan-class exoskeleton. It provides protection and enhanced strength for our soldiers. Protection? Another alien spoke up. This one was crystalline, its body made of what looked like living glass. It was a synthery, and its voice sounded like wind chimes. How quaint. Physical armor is such an ancient concept. Theven nodded in agreement. The Volanthi developed energy shield technology centuries ago. Our soldiers carry generators no larger than your human hand. They provide complete protection without the weight. And the Korax need no armor at all, Kravox added proudly. Our scales can deflect most weapons, and our bodies can heal from almost any wound. We regenerate faster than your kind can blink. The mocking continued as they entered the council chamber. It was a massive circular room with seats arranged in tiers around a central platform. Representatives from all 12 species were already present, and they all turned to look at the humans. Amanda walked beside Daniel, her face carefully blank. But he could see the tension in her shoulders. She was angry, and he couldn't blame her. Your armor must cost a fortune to transport, a Volanthi delegate called out. All that weight for such limited protection. Perhaps humans simply enjoy carrying heavy loads, another alien suggested. They are a young species, after all. They will learn eventually. Or perhaps they will not, Kravox said with another rumbling laugh. Some species never advance beyond their primitive beginnings. Daniel stood in the center of the chamber and faced the council. He did not raise his voice. He did not show anger. He simply waited until the laughter died down. We are here to join the Andromeda Pact, he said clearly. We come in peace, seeking trade and friendship. We do not claim to be the most advanced species in the galaxy, but we have survived everything that the universe has thrown at us so far. And we will continue to survive. Theven leaned forward, his forearms folded across his chest. Bold words for such a young species. But words are easy. Let us see if your actions match your confidence. Daniel smiled slightly. I look forward to the opportunity. The first day of the summit passed slowly. Speeches were made. Treaties were discussed. And through it all, the mocking continued. The aliens seemed unable to stop talking about the heavy, clumsy armor that the human Marines wore. Marcus stood at attention near the entrance, enduring the stares and whispers without reaction. His face remained as still as stone. But inside his helmet, away from alien eyes, he allowed himself a small smile. They had no idea what was coming. The video spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Within hours of the demonstration, every major news network in the Andromeda Pact was broadcasting footage of the human Marines surviving the Nova Lance. Commentators analyzed the footage frame by frame. Military experts debated what it meant. And ordinary citizens watched in amazement as the armored figure rose from the smoke and asked, "Is that all you've got?" On Valora Station, Commander Daniel Hayes sat in the human delegation's quarters and watched the chaos unfold on multiple screens. Messages were arriving from every species in the council. Some were requests for information, some were demands for explanation, and some were offers of alliance that had not existed the day before. This is getting out of control, Amanda said, scrolling through the endless list of communications. The Volanthi want to schedule a private meeting. The Korax are demanding to know how we built the armor. And the smaller species, the ones who never spoke to us before, are suddenly very interested in friendship. Let them wait, Daniel replied. Right now, I need to check on Marcus. He found the sergeant in the medical bay, sitting on an examination table while Dr. Nicole Barrett ran her scanners over his chest. Marcus had removed the upper portion of his armor, revealing the bruised skin beneath. Purple and black marks covered his torso, but he seemed unbothered by the pain. How bad is it? Daniel asked. Nicole looked up from her readings. 2 cracked ribs, extensive bruising, and some minor internal bleeding that's already clotting on its own. He's lucky to be alive. Luck had nothing to do with it, Marcus said. The armor did its job. The ablative layers absorbed most of the heat. The shock dampening systems took the kinetic impact. I'm sore, but I'm breathing. The armor took heavy damage, Nicole continued. The chest plate will need to be replaced completely. But the internal systems are still functional. It can be repaired. Daniel nodded slowly. He had watched the footage himself, dozens of times. The moment of impact had been terrifying, even knowing that Marcus had survived. The Nova Lance had struck with enough force to destroy a small building, and the M7 Titan had absorbed it all. "How long until you're fit for duty?" he asked. "I'm fit now," Marcus replied, reaching for his shirt. "Just give me a fresh set of armor. Rest first. That's an order." That evening, High Counselor Theven requested a private meeting with Daniel. They met in a small observation lounge on one of the upper levels of the station. Through the curved window, they could see the massive gas giant that Valora orbited, its swirling storms of red and orange moving in slow, majestic patterns. Theven was different than before. His posture was less confident, his voice less musical. He seemed genuinely troubled. "I owe you an apology, Commander," he said. "The Valanthi have always prided ourselves on our advanced technology. We believed that physical armor was a primitive solution, something that young species used before they discovered better methods. We were wrong." "You weren't entirely wrong," Daniel replied. "Shields are useful. Regeneration is valuable. Every species finds solutions that work for them. But your armor survived the Nova Lance. Nothing else has ever done that." Theven's forearms moved in a gesture of confusion. "Our best shields lasted less than 2 seconds. The Synthery crystal, which was supposed to be indestructible, shattered like glass. How did human engineers accomplish what our greatest minds could not?" Daniel looked out at the gas giant for a long moment before answering. "Humanity has been fighting for survival since before we could walk upright," he said slowly. "Our planet was dangerous. Our history was violent. We developed armor because we needed it. First it was animal skins, then leather, then metal, then composite materials that could stop bullets and absorb explosions. Each generation built on the work of the previous one. But surely other species have faced similar challenges," Theven said. "Perhaps, but most species develop in one direction. The Valanthi focused on shields because they worked well against the threats you faced. The Corax relied on their natural regeneration. The Synthery trusted in their crystalline bodies." Daniel turned to face him. "Humans didn't have any natural advantages. We weren't strong like the Corax. We weren't tough like the Synthery. We couldn't regenerate or create energy shields. So we built things, heavy things, durable things, things that would protect us no matter what. And you never stopped building. Never. The M7 Titan armor is the result of 400 years of continuous development. Every war, every battle, every loss taught us something new. We incorporated every lesson into the design, redundant systems, multiple layers of protection, shock absorption, heat dissipation. The suit is designed to fail gracefully, one system at a time, while keeping the wearer alive." Theven was silent for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was thoughtful. "The other species are afraid, Commander. For centuries, the Corax were considered the supreme military power in our region of space. Their weapons were unmatched. Their warriors were undefeated. But today, a single human soldier survived their greatest weapon. If humanity can do that, we're not here to threaten anyone," Daniel said firmly. "Humanity wants peace. We want trade. We want to learn from other species and share what we know. We have no interest in conquest." "I believe you," Theven said. "But belief is not enough to calm the fears of the Council. When the summit resumes tomorrow, there will be questions. demands, perhaps even accusations. Let them ask their questions. We have nothing to hide. Theven nodded slowly. There's one more thing, Commander. Some species are already talking about forming closer ties with humanity. They see your strength and they want to be your friend. But others are talking about alliances against you. They fear what they do not understand. And which group do the Volanthi belong to? The High Counselor's lipless mouth curved into a small smile. I have not decided yet, but today has made me reconsider many things. After Theven left, Daniel remained in the observation lounge, watching the storm swirl across the face of the gas giant. Amanda found him there an hour later. The messages are still coming in, she reported. But I've identified the most important ones. 3 species want military alliances. 5 want trade agreements. 2 are demanding that we reveal the secrets of our armor technology. And the others? Silent, watching, waiting to see what happens next. Daniel nodded. That's the smart move. We've surprised them once. Now they want to see if we can do it again. Can we? Amanda asked quietly. I don't know, he admitted. But I know one thing for certain. Whatever happens next, they'll never underestimate us again. And that's worth more than any treaty or alliance. The summit was scheduled to resume in the morning, but neither Daniel nor Amanda knew that events were already in motion that would change everything. In the dark corner of Valora Station, a crystalline figure watched the footage of the Novolance test for the 100th time. Prime Facet of the Centauri studied the human armor with cold, calculating eyes. Plasma had failed to destroy it. But there were other ways. 3 days passed at Valora Station. 3 days of meetings, negotiations, and endless mockery. The aliens seemed to enjoy pointing out every flaw they could find in human technology. Their ships were too slow. Their weapons were too simple. And their armor was too heavy. Commander Daniel Hayes attended every session with the same calm expression. He listened to the insults without reacting. He answered questions politely and honestly. And he waited. On the morning of the 4th day, General Kravox made an announcement that changed everything. My fellow council members, the Corax leader said, his yellow eyes gleaming with pride, I invite all delegations to witness a demonstration of Corax military power. Today, you will see why we have remained the dominant military force in this region of space for over 500 years. The demonstration was held on a small moon orbiting the gas giant near Valora Station. Shuttles carried delegates from the station to a massive arena that had been built into the gray rock. The arena was circular, with viewing platforms arranged around a central testing area. Daniel stood among the other diplomats, with Amanda on his left and Marcus on his right. The sergeant had left his helmet off, revealing his weathered face and close-cropped gray hair. His eyes moved constantly, studying the arena and the aliens around them. I don't like this, Amanda murmured quietly. It feels like a trap. It's not a trap, Daniel replied. It's a performance. Kravox wants to show off. A massive weapon was wheeled into the center of the arena on an anti-gravity platform. It looked like a cannon, nearly 3 meters long, with a barrel that glowed with a deep red light. Cables and conduits ran along its surface, and heat waves shimmered in the air around it. Behold the Novolance, Kravox announced, his voice booming across the arena. This weapon represents the peak of Corax engineering. It fires concentrated plasma at temperatures exceeding the surface of a star. Nothing can survive its power. No shield, no armor, no living creature. The demonstration began. Targets were brought forward one by one. The first was a block of reinforced alloy used in starship construction. The Novolance fired with a sound like thunder, and the metal simply vanished, turned to vapor in an instant. More targets followed. A Volanthi shield generator was activated, creating a shimmering barrier of energy. The Nova Lance punched through it in less than 2 seconds, leaving nothing but scattered components. A piece of synthery crystal, supposedly the hardest material known to the Council, cracked and shattered under the assault. With each demonstration, the aliens cheered and applauded. The Nova Lance was indeed impressive. It destroyed everything placed before it without effort. Then Kravox turned to the human delegation. "Commander Hayes," he said. His reptilian face twisted in what might have been amusement. "Would you like to test your famous armor against our weapon?" The arena fell silent. Every eye turned toward the humans. Amanda's hand moved toward her sidearm instinctively. "Sir, they can't be serious." "They're completely serious," Daniel replied. He turned to Marcus. "Sergeant, what do you think?" Marcus looked at the Nova Lance, then at his own armored hands. He had been wearing the M7 Titan for over 20 years. He knew every system, every layer, every strength and weakness of the suit. He trusted it more than he trusted anything else in the universe. "I'll do it," he said simply. Steven stepped forward, his silver face showing genuine concern. "Commander, this is madness. You would sacrifice one of your soldiers for pride? The Nova Lance will vaporize him. I have faith in our equipment," Daniel replied. The arena buzzed with whispered conversations as Marcus walked toward the testing platform. His heavy boots left deep prints in the moon's dusty surface. The servos of his armor hummed as he moved, the sound steady and reassuring. He stopped in the center of the arena and turned to face the Nova Lance. The weapon was already charging, its red glow intensifying with each passing second. Marcus could feel the heat from where he stood, even through his armor's climate control systems. "Are you certain about this, human?" Kravox called out. There was something in his voice that might have been respect. "There is no shame in refusing." "Fire the weapon," Marcus replied. The Nova Lance spoke. A beam of pure destruction screamed across the arena. It struck Marcus directly in the chest with the force of a falling mountain. The impact lifted him off his feet and sent him sliding backward, his armored boots carving deep furrows in the rock. Smoke and superheated air billowed around him in a choking cloud. For a long moment, there was only silence. Amanda held her breath. Daniel's hands were clenched at his sides. Even Steven stood frozen, his forearms motionless. Then the smoke began to clear. Marcus was on one knee, one armored hand pressed against the ground for support. His chest plate was blackened and partially melted, the once smooth surface now rough and scarred. But he was alive. And as everyone watched in disbelief, he slowly rose to his feet. Steam rose from his damaged armor. Warning lights blinked inside his helmet. But the M7 Titan had held. "Is that all you've got?" Marcus asked. The arena exploded with noise. Aliens shouted, screamed, and demanded explanations. Kravox stared at the human marine with his yellow eyes wide, his mouth hanging open in shock. Steven was speaking rapidly into a communication device, his forearms waving in agitation. Daniel walked calmly to Marcus's side. "How do you feel, Sergeant?" "Like I got hit by a star," Marcus admitted. "But the suit took most of it." "I've got some bruising, maybe a cracked rib." "Nothing serious. The armor held." "The armor always holds, sir. That's what it's designed to do." They returned to the viewing platform together, Marcus walking slowly but steadily on his damaged armor. The other human Marines formed up around them, their weapons held ready, though there was no threat to respond to. General Kravox intercepted them before they could reach the shuttles. The Corex general was breathing heavily, his scales rippling with emotion. "How?" he demanded. "How did you survive? The Nova Lance has destroyed everything. Everything. No species has ever built anything that could withstand it." Daniel met his yellow eyes without flinching. "Humanity has been fighting wars for thousands of years, General. We have learned that the best defense is one that cannot fail. Your shields can be overloaded. Your regeneration can be overwhelmed. But our armor is simple. It is heavy. And it works. But the weight, Kravox protested. The cost. The inefficiency. We are willing to carry the weight, Daniel replied. Because the weight keeps us alive. He turned and walked toward the shuttle, leaving the stunned aliens behind. Amanda fell into step beside him, and for the first time since they had arrived at Valora Station, she was smiling. I think they're starting to take us seriously, she said. They're starting to, Daniel agreed. But this is just the beginning. When word of this gets out, everything will change. He was right. By the time they returned to Valora Station, the video of Marcus surviving the Nova Lance was already spreading across the galaxy. Within hours, it would be seen by billions of beings on thousands of worlds, and humanity would never be mocked again. The final day of the summit began with celebration. Banners of all 12 council species hung from the walls of the Grand Chamber. Music played from hidden speakers, a strange melody that somehow incorporated sounds pleasing to every species present. Today, humanity would officially join the Andromeda Pact. Commander Daniel Hayes stood at the center of the chamber, dressed in his finest uniform. Amanda was at his side, along with Dr. Nicole Barrett and the entire Marine security team. Marcus had recovered enough to wear his repaired armor, though he moved carefully to avoid stressing his healing ribs. High Counselor Theven rose to address the assembly. My fellow council members, he began, today marks a historic moment. For the first time in 300 years, we welcome a new species into our great alliance. Humanity has proven themselves worthy of our respect. They have shown courage, dignity, and strength. I am honored to propose their admission to the Andromeda Pact. Before he could continue, the lights went out. Emergency alarms screamed through the corridors. Red warning lights flashed in the darkness. Somewhere in the distance, an explosion shook the station hard enough to knock people off their feet. What's happening? Amanda shouted over the noise. Daniel grabbed a communication device from his belt. Bridge, this is Commander Hayes. Report. Static was the only response. Then a new voice filled the chamber. It was cold and musical, like wind chimes in a winter storm. Citizens of the Andromeda Pact, this is prime facet of the Synthry Collective. For too long, we have waited in silence while lesser species dominated this council. Today, that ends. The crystalline aliens had always been the quietest members of the council. They rarely spoke at meetings. They kept to themselves, studying and watching. Now Daniel understood why. They had been waiting. We have taken control of the station's power core, Prime Facet continued. In one standard hour, we will overload the reactor and destroy this station and everyone aboard. Unless you surrender all weapons and technology to the Synthry, every being on Valora will die. Panic spread through the chamber. Aliens screamed and ran for the exits. The Korax warriors tried to organize a defense, but they were scattered across multiple levels of the station. The Volanthi leaders called for calm, but no one was listening. Daniel grabbed Theven by the arm. Where's the power core? Level 7, Section 12, the High Counselor replied, his silver face pale with fear. But you cannot reach it. The Synthry have sealed all the access corridors. We'll find a way. Daniel turned to his team. Everyone on me. We're moving. The human contingent pushed through the chaos toward the nearest maintenance corridor. Marcus took the lead, his armored form clearing a path through the frightened crowds. Behind him, the other Marines moved in tight formation, their weapons ready. Dr. Barrett, Daniel said into his comm, get back to the horizon's edge. If we fail, you need to warn Earth. Understood. Commander, Nicole's voice crackled back. Good luck. They found a sealed door blocking the corridor to level 7. Marcus didn't hesitate. He stepped forward and drove his armored fist into the metal. The first blow left a dent. The second tore a hole. The third ripped the door from its frame entirely. "Move," Daniel ordered. The corridor beyond was bathed in eerie blue light. It came from the Synthri themselves, their crystalline bodies glowing with internal energy. There were dozens of them, perhaps hundreds, filling every passage and junction. They had taken the station completely by surprise. "Commander," Amanda said quietly, "I'm counting at least 30 Synthri between us and the power core. Maybe more, I'm aware." Daniel checked his weapon. "How are you feeling, Sergeant?" Marcus rolled his armored shoulders. "Ready for round 2. They advanced. The first Synthri patrol found them at a junction point. 6 crystalline warriors emerged from the blue glow, their bodies sharp and angular. They carried weapons that looked like twisted pieces of glass, and when they fired, beams of concentrated light shot toward the humans. The beams struck the M7 armor and scattered harmlessly. Light-based weapons worked by focusing energy on a single point, but the armor's reflective outer layer dispersed the beams in every direction. The Synthri had never faced an enemy they couldn't cut down with their light weapons. They had no idea how to respond. The Marines opened fire with kinetic accelerator rifles. Each round was a tiny projectile moving at incredible speed. When they hit the Synthri, the crystalline bodies shattered like glass struck by hammers. The patrol was destroyed in seconds. "Keep moving," Daniel ordered. They fought their way through the station, corridor by corridor, junction by junction. The Synthri attacked in waves, throwing everything they had at the advancing humans. Light beams flashed through the air. Crystal blades slashed at armored limbs. But nothing stopped the Marines. Kevin Park took a hit that cracked his helmet visor. He sealed the crack with emergency tape and kept fighting. Brandon Scott's left arm servo was damaged, forcing him to fire one-handed. He didn't slow down. Tyler Murphy was thrown against a wall hard enough to dent his chest plate. He got up and returned fire before the Synthri could press their advantage. "How much further?" Daniel asked, stepping over the shattered remains of another crystal warrior. Amanda checked her scanner. 2 more sections. But there's a lot of movement ahead. They're massing for a final defense. Then we hit them hard and fast. No hesitation. No mercy. They reached the entrance to the power core chamber and found their path blocked by a wall of crystal. At least 40 Synthri warriors stood between them and their target, their glowing bodies packed so tightly that there was barely room to move. And behind them stood Prime Facet himself. He was enormous, nearly 4 meters tall, his body a perfect lattice of crystal that pulsed with stolen energy from the station's reactor. His voice echoed through the chamber like breaking glass. "Impossible," he said. "You should be dead. Your primitive armor should have failed long ago." "That's what everyone keeps telling us," Daniel replied. "And yet, here we are." "You cannot stop us," Prime Facet declared. "Even if you destroy every warrior in this room, I will overload the reactor. Millions will die. Then we'll have to stop you first." The battle began. The Synthri swarmed forward, a wave of crystal and light. The Marines met them head-on, their kinetic weapons roaring, their armored fists swinging. The chamber became a chaos of shattering crystal and flashing energy. Daniel fought at the front, his rifle cutting down warriors one after another. Amanda covered his flank, her movements quick and precise. Marcus was a force of nature, smashing through Synthri like a hammer through glass. But there were too many of them. For every crystal warrior that fell, 2 more took its place. Then Megan Ross went down. A Synthri blade caught her in the leg, slicing through a gap in her armor. She fell with a cry of pain, and the crystal warriors surged toward her, sensing weakness. Christopher Lane threw himself between them and his fallen comrade. He fired until his rifle overheated, then drew his combat knife and kept fighting. Crystal blades struck his armor again and again, leaving deep gouges in the metal. "Cover Megan," Daniel shouted. "Get her out of here." Kevin and Brandon moved to obey, dragging Megan toward the corridor while Tyler and Marcus held the line. Christopher was surrounded, his armor damaged and his knife chipped from cutting through crystal. But he didn't give up. He never gave up. Amanda reached him just in time, her rifle blazing as she cut down the warriors closest to him. Together, they fell back toward the main group, leaving a trail of shattered crystal behind them. "We can't hold this position," Marcus reported, his voice strained. "There are too many of them." Daniel looked at the swarm of enemies, then at his battered team. They had fought harder than any soldiers in human history. They had survived things that should have killed them. But now, surrounded by an endless wave of crystalline warriors, even the M7 armor might not be enough. Then he looked at Prime Facet, standing alone at the far end of the chamber, watching the battle with cold satisfaction. "Keep them busy," Daniel said. "I'm going for the leader." Before anyone could stop him, he charged. Commander Daniel Hayes charged toward Prime Facet with everything he had. His armored boots pounded against the metal floor. Synthery warriors tried to block his path, but he smashed through them without slowing down. His rifle ran empty, so he used it as a club until it broke. Then he threw the pieces aside and kept running. Prime Facet watched him come with something like amusement. "Brave," the crystalline giant said. "Foolish, but brave. Do you think your armor can save you from me?" He struck with blinding speed. His arm, sharp as any blade, came down toward Daniel's head with enough force to split starship hull plating. Daniel raised his armored forearm to block, and the impact sent shockwaves through his entire body. Warning lights flashed inside his helmet. The metal groaned under the strain, but it held. Daniel drove his armored fist into Prime Facet's chest. The crystal cracked but did not shatter. The Synthery leader laughed, a sound like grinding glass, and struck again. This time, his blow caught Daniel in the side, spinning him around and sending him crashing to the floor. Across the chamber, the other Marines were still fighting. Marcus had formed a defensive circle with the remaining soldiers, protecting the wounded Megan while cutting down every Synthery that came within reach. Amanda was at his side, her movements precise and deadly. But they were being pushed back, step by step, toward the wall. Daniel forced himself to stand. His ribs screamed in protest. His armor systems were failing one by one, the damage too severe to repair. But he was still alive. He was still fighting. "You cannot win," Prime Facet said, looming over him. "Surrender now, and I may spare your species a painful extinction." "Humanity doesn't surrender," Daniel replied. He attacked again, this time aiming for the joints where Prime Facet's crystalline segments connected. His blows left cracks in the crystal, but the giant seemed unbothered. Every time Daniel landed a hit, Prime Facet struck back twice as hard. The battle became a brutal exchange. Crystal against metal. Ancient malice against human determination. Daniel was thrown across the chamber more than once, his armor dented and scorched, his body battered beyond what should have been possible. But each time, he got back up. "Why do you continue?" Prime Facet demanded, genuine confusion in his voice. "You are beaten. Your armor is failing. Your body is broken. Why do you not accept defeat?" Daniel spat blood inside his helmet. "Because that's not how humans work." He charged one more time. Prime Facet met him with a devastating combination of blows. The first cracked Daniel's chest plate. The second shattered his helmet visor. The third sent him flying backward to land in a crumpled heap at the edge of the chamber. For a long moment, he did not move. Amanda saw him fall and screamed his name. She tried to break free from the fight around her, but there were too many Synthery between them. Marcus shouted orders, trying to rally the team. But they were being overwhelmed. Then Christopher Lane did something no one expected. He had been fighting at the edge of the group. His armor damaged, his weapons nearly depleted. The leg servo that had been damaged earlier finally gave out, and he fell to one knee. Any sensible soldier would have pulled back. Any sensible soldier would have waited for support. Christopher was not a sensible soldier. He looked at Prime Facet, standing triumphant over the fallen commander. He looked at his own rifle, empty and useless. He looked at his armored hands, still strong despite everything, and he made a decision. Moving on pure determination, he pushed himself up and began to run. His damaged leg dragged behind him, the servo sparking with each step. Synthery warriors tried to stop him, but he smashed through them like they were made of paper. He crossed the chamber in seconds, his eyes fixed on the giant crystal entity. Prime Facet saw him coming too late. Christopher did not try to be clever. He did not aim for weak points or vulnerable joints. He simply planted his armored feet, raised his rifle like a club, and emptied every remaining round from his sidearm directly into Prime Facet's central mass at point-blank range. The first shots cracked the surface. The second wave deepened the fractures. The third shattered the entire structure. Prime Facet screamed, a sound like 1,000 windows breaking at once. His enormous body came apart in a cascade of crystal shards that scattered across the chamber. The light in his eyes flickered and died. For a moment, there was silence. Then the remaining Synthery warriors stopped fighting. They looked at the remains of their leader, scattered across the floor like broken glass, and something changed in them. The aggression faded from their movements. Their weapons lowered. Without Prime Facet, they had no purpose. Without his will driving them, they were lost. Marcus stepped forward, his armored form battered but unbowed. "Stand down," he commanded, his voice carrying across the chamber. "The fight is over." One by one, the Synthery dropped their weapons and retreated. Amanda ran to Daniel's side and found him struggling to rise. His armor was ruined, barely holding together. Blood trickled from a gash on his forehead. But he was alive. "Christopher," he managed to say. "Is he?" "He's okay," Amanda replied, helping him to his feet. "He just saved all of our lives." They found Christopher standing over the remains of Prime Facet, his damaged leg finally giving out completely. He collapsed to his knees, breathing hard, but there was a smile on his face. "Did we win?" he asked. "Yeah," Marcus said, clapping him on the shoulder. "We won!" The aftermath of the battle was chaotic but ultimately hopeful. The Synthery forces surrendered completely once they learned of Prime Facet's death. The station's power core was stabilized before it could overload, and the Council species, who had watched the fighting from safe hiding places, emerged to find the human Marines standing victorious among the wreckage. High Counselor Stephen found Daniel in the medical bay, where Dr. Nicole Barrett was treating his wounds. "You saved us," Stephen said softly. "All of us. The entire station would have been destroyed if not for your soldiers." "We did what needed to be done," Daniel replied. "Your armor." Stephen looked at the battered M7 suits that the Marines had removed. They were dented, cracked, scorched, and barely functional. But they had done their job. It survived everything. Light weapons, crystal blades, blows that should have been fatal. How is that possible? Daniel considered the question for a moment before answering. "The Synthery never understood our armor," he said. "They thought it was primitive because it was heavy. They thought it was weak because it could be damaged. But that's not the point. The point is that it keeps working. It takes the hit, and the soldier inside keeps fighting. It gets damaged, and it fails gracefully, one system at a time, while keeping the wearer alive long enough to finish the mission. But why?" Stephen pressed. Why do humans build things this way? Because we have to. Daniel looked at his team, at the battered soldiers who had faced impossible odds and refused to give up. Humans have never been the strongest or the fastest. We don't regenerate. We can't create shields. Our bodies are fragile and our lives are short. But we've learned to survive anyway. We build things that last. We carry the weight because the weight keeps us alive. Stephen was silent for a long moment. Then he bowed, a gesture of deep respect. The Andromeda Pact is fortunate to have humanity as an ally, he said. We will not forget what you did here today. The summit concluded 3 days later. Humanity was admitted to the Andromeda Pact with full honors. Every species that had mocked their armor now spoke of it with respect and admiration. Trade agreements were signed. Military alliances were formed. And the story of the human Marines who survived the Nova Lance and defeated the Synthri uprising spread across the galaxy. Months later, Commander Daniel Hayes stood on the observation deck of Earth's orbital station, watching ships from a dozen different species come and go. Amanda stood beside him, now promoted to commander herself. They're still talking about us, she said, nodding toward a Corax vessel that was requesting docking permission. I heard the Corax are redesigning their armor based on our principles. They're adding layers, making it heavier. Daniel smiled. I hope they understand that it's not just about the weight. It's about what the weight represents. And what's that? Commitment, determination, the willingness to carry whatever burden necessary to survive. He turned to face her. The galaxy is dangerous, Amanda. There will always be threats we didn't expect, powers we didn't know existed, enemies we never saw coming. But as long as we're willing to carry the weight, we'll survive, even if it means being mocked. Especially then. Daniel looked back at the stars. Let them laugh. Let them underestimate us. In the end, we'll still be standing. Because that's what humans do. We survive. The weight of their armor had saved them, but the weight of their spirit had made them strong, and the galaxy would never forget it.